Welcome, everyone, to a special bonus episode of Puppet Masters and Castle Freaks, the internet's leading all things Charles Band podcast. I am one of your hosts, Jarrod Hornbeck, and I'm coming to you from Brooklyn, New York, as always. But, I am running guest lists. Unfortunately, Steve is not here for this special bonus episode. You may not know this, but as we speak right now, he is on the run from the law. He is in a stolen convertible somewhere in the desert, I think. Hopefully, I'll get him back in time for when we need to record our next episode. But unfortunately, he is unattainable at this moment. But you know what? That doesn't even really matter at this point because I'm very excited to have this conversation with our special guest today for this episode. Now, Assault of the Killer Bimbos is a movie that we've talked about on the show. Steve and myself both have a lot of love for this movie with this incredible title. And so I'm really happy to introduce our special guest for the episode. So I'll let them introduce themselves. So who's here with me right now?
Hey, I'm so excited to be here. I guess Steve's being chased by bimbos in the desert is what's happening.
He always is.
Okay. So I'm Anita Rosenberg. I found my little slate. So anyway, we'll go action and we will start the
wonderful
fabulous podcast. So I directed Assault of the Killer Bimbos. It was my directorial debut in 1988. And I'm actually quite proud of it, even though, it may not have been the epic picture that, I was hoping to make early in my career. But you know what? It's my movie. So you know what? I got to make it and it's mine and I'm proud of it.
And you should be, because it's a really kind of earnestly sweet and funny movie. We covered the movie proper on the show about 2 years ago, I would say. And I was familiar with the movie. Steve had not seen it, I don't think, if my memory serves me correctly, before we recorded. And we had a guest, Becky Dark, a wonderful podcaster and writer from the UK, who had never seen it and was super excited to cover it based on the title. And so it was really fun. And, watching it that time for the show, I really paid attention to the dynamics between the women in the movie and how, it could have been, based on the title alone, something that was kind of demeaning towards them. And that really never comes across. They have agency. People call them bimbos. They don't call themselves bimbos. They're just trying to do right by being called a bimbo, in fact. And the relationships between the girls was really sweet. We had a really fun time, and it ended up being one that has always stuck with me. And so I'm very curious about the kind of origin story of this project in terms of your involvement. Now, am I correct in that this movie was in the form that we ended up getting it was this kind of pitched or brought to you by Dave Dakota?
No.
Okay,
so let's rewind. We'll tell you a little of the story. So my background is I went to art school. I went to the San Francisco Art Institute. I started making independent films. I learned to make filmmaking by George Kuchar. George and Mike Kuchar were the independent filmmakers out west. And I wanted a career in film, so I went to NYU Graduate Film School, and Spike Lee was in my class,
awesome,
along with Ernest Dickerson, who worked with Spike. My cameraman on all my films at NYU was Marianne Brandon. She's the editor of all the J.J. Abrams movies. It's done Star Wars, Star Trek, Mission Impossible, all those films. So I came out of that background. My thesis film at NYU was called Bachelorette Pad. It had Barbie dolls that came to life. So I always did a bit of a campy, kitschy. That was always my style. It was romance, sure. Comic books come to life. So I always kind of had that cartoony concept and very artsy ideas. So I come out to Los Angeles and I try pitching projects that I think are brilliant about girls doing stuff. And at that time, the kind of movies were Bachelor Party with Tom Hanks and Porky's. And it was all about guys doing stuff. And I got my first project called Modern Girls, and it was with Atlantic Releasing. And it was originally, you're a guy, you probably don't remember the mystery dream date game. Just sisters or cousins that played with it. So I had an idea, and I built a giant board game, and I went to meetings and to pitch this idea that you had this mystery date. You open the door to get your mystery date. And it was a game come to life. Well, Atlantic Releasing loved the concept, but didn't quite get it, but decided to make it called it Modern Girls. Actually, I think there was an article in Playboy about girls that go out to nightclubs, which is actually what my life was. So he says, you know what, let's just call it Modern Girls, and it's girls going to clubs looking for guys. And I went, well, that's what I do. I mean, that was my world and my life. So basically, we brought in a writer, and she followed me around the city of Los Angeles and wrote about me. So this was one of the few movies at the time. It was 3 girls going out to nightclubs looking for guys. And at that time, there were only, I think, just a few female directors. There was Susan Seidelman. She did Desperately Seeking Susan, which is a film I love. There really weren't any of us around. And I didn't see that we couldn't make movies. I didn't get it. So I would just, after that movie came out, I went and I pitched and did different projects. And there were not opportunities for female directors. So through a friend named Peter Manoogian is Hag Manoogian from NYU. He was one of the big professors. He said, you know what, you need to meet Charlie Band. He's doing all these projects, and maybe there's a chance for you to direct something there. Now, I'm not 100% sure, but I think at the time he did not have any female directors at all. I remember meeting with him and his wife at the time, Debbie Dion, and we got along great, and they gave me the opportunity to make a movie. So I think what had happened is Charlie had the title, Assault of the Killer Bimbos, and he had made sort of a stabber movie and ended up calling it Hack 'em High. They changed the name of that movie to Hack 'em High. And he realized that it was a more interesting title. So at the meeting, he said, I've got a title, Assault of the Killer Bimbos. He had no movie. He had a title. And I was insulted. Yes, I did do Bachelorette Pad, I did Modern Girls, but I was like, oh, this is taking the chick flick, and like you said, it sounded a little demeaning. But, I wasn't getting any offers, really. I mean, I was up for like a Bananarama video that I didn't get. There wasn't a lot going on. So I said, let me think about it. So I went, I took the weekend, and my friend Patty Astor, who was an underground film starlet in New York City, and somebody who worked on a lot of my student films and had the fun gallery. She and I are like wacky and creative, and we rented Girl on the Run movies. So we rented Roger Corman films. We rented, my favorites were the Russ Meyer films, and we rented Faster Pussycat Kill Kill.
Yeah.
So we thought, okay, let's do Girls on the Run, Framed for a Murder They Didn't Commit. And I could see all the low budget tricks that Russ Meyer had used, like, all of a sudden someone's having sex and they cut to springs or something, and someone's having an orgasm and there's a car crash. So I did a similar thing where the girls go into a diner and the toast pops up and the eggs fry. And I thought, okay, this I can kind of work with it. So I went back and I pitched the idea to Charlie, and he said yes, and he gave me the green light. So that's how the project came to be. I mean, I do remember at the time saying, if I can do it from a female point of view and do it the way I want to do it, then yes, I'm on board. I would like to do it, which hopefully is what you picked up on, that the girls were not demeaning, but they're silly and they're goofy. And I will tell you one thing, it is not easy to play stupid. It is not easy. Like, I love Yellowstone, and there's the daughter in Yellowstone. She plays Dingy. It is not easy to play that Dingy character.
No,
really,
not at all.
It takes, and Liz Caton did a beautiful job at it. She really was terrific. So that Charlie gave me a lot of his crew members. So he gave me Dave Dakota and John Schuweiler to produce it. And it was super helpful to me because I didn't know how to make a movie within Charlie's parameters of budget and time. I mean, we went to the Mojave Desert. We maybe had 15 days, I think. It was a very short shoot. We had a big car crash thing that was very exciting and scary. I had no idea. So those guys came on as producers.
Excellent. Now, I'm so glad to hear that from you, because what it really proves to me is that when you go digging in the internet for information, you often find stuff that is anachronistic in how these things come to be. Because don't remember exactly where it was that Steve and I pulled it from, but it was that somehow that the project was through Dakota to you, which is now great to hear, the true story of how this happened. And the movie you're referring to, if I'm not mistaken, was a movie that they were originally giving the title to, which was a Carmine Capabianco and Gorman Bechard movie, which, as much as I love their movie Psychos in Love, I think the best thing that could have happened to Assault of the Killer Bimbos was for it to go the direction that it did. And you have some, more than some of the other movies that we covered, you have some incredible like archival footage of stuff from the time. I went on your YouTube a while back and watched some stuff that you posted of the casting process and the Movie Time interview with Christopher Chisholm. And that stuff is great. Like,
and Joe Bob Briggs. Joe Bob, yeah. That was hysterical and really funny. One of the things I do want to talk about is casting. So Charlie Band Films, and specifically a Dave Dakota film, they have certain cast members they use. And coming into it, I did not really want to use their cast. I wanted to cast my people. So actually, I think the only person that is in my film that comes from the Charlie Band School of Filmmaking is Liz Caton. And Elizabeth was fabulous. I love her. She was great. And she really made the movie. So she was terrific. And they showed me a variety of their other people, and I was not interested in working with them. And I think it's Paul Ventura was our casting person. And we brought in he brought in some interesting people. But I started using my Hollywood connections, and I pulled a lot of favors. One of the casting things that I really had the most fun with is, so there's these the surfer guys. There's three guys. They don't even have dialogue. Okay, I think the main guy had some dialogue. The other ones didn't have dialogue, and I knew that you have to have names. You have to have some names that help sell it. So I was looking around to go, okay, who could I bring in that maybe has some saleable name? So anyway, a family friend of ours is Jamie Bosian. He was in The Wraith with Griffin O'Neill and Nick Cassavetes. So he brought in his buddies. I mean, it was like they came into a meeting and I go, please, will you come do a movie? And they were adorable and they were super fun. And, they're driving around the car with the smoke coming out, which they were really smoking. I think I was on the floor in the front seats and I was doing it too. And they didn't have dialogue. And I'm like, you cannot put these people in a movie and not let them talk.
Right.
And so we didn't have scripted dialogue, but they were silly and kind of funny. They wanted to do their little Three Stooges routine, whatever that was. And I remember Nick Cassavetes was so adorable. He was so committed to this part that he wanted to bleach his hair like blonde on the first day. He's tall with dark hair, and it turned orange, and it kept changing colors. But I love the commitment that everybody had. I mean, we were on location. We were in the Mojave Desert. It just had this kind of energy and vibe. We stayed at the hotel that we shot at. I kind of look back at a couple of people. There's a guy named Paul Ben Victor who actually is, if you Google him, he works a lot. He's in a lot of pictures, and a lot of TV shows, very, very talented. I think his big line, I think it was hubba, hubba, hubba. I don't know. It just is amazing to me that
sounds about right.
Interesting people come on. Hey, they were working actors, but you know what? It's like they came in to do this fun little film. They had silly little parts, and I think we had Clayton Rohner, who was I think he played two parts. It's like he played the Mexican motel owner, and then he played someone else. So it was just really a lot of fun.
And it's nice. It's fun for us too, as fans of low budget movies, to see a lot of these familiar faces, because, you mentioned Clayton Rohner, and he has a connection to Elizabeth Caton also, because they were in a movie together shortly after called Nightwish.
Clayton Landy was in my film. Clayton Rohner was in my film.
It's funny you said that, and I'm picturing Clayton Rohner, and I'm like, oh, that's the guy. That guy's in Nightwish. That guy's in I, Madman. He's in a bunch of movies, but he was in, what was the name of the movie?
He was the lead in Modern Girls.
Modern Girls, okay. Yeah, he's in another movie with Elizabeth Caton called Nightwish, and I I think like I would it's always really nice. It's great to hear, that people were fun to work with and people were committed to. I've professed on the show that as somebody who loves I'll use the term here and I don't mean it like pejorative, like exploitation films and low budget films. Like I love those kind of movies, and I have this real fondness for people and a respect. I almost look at it the same way as some people look at like soap opera actors. Like they go out there and they do this thing and they work steadily, and they don't always get the same accolades as other people, even the ones who are very good. And Elizabeth Caton's career from like 1984, 85 to like the early 90s when she started doing the Vice Academy movies, she's in so many memorable genre movies. She's kind of one of those like I don't want to say have this sound negative, but like a lower tier kind of scream queen. And I think she's so much fun. She's really one of the reasons. There are a lot of why the movie works. And it's nice to hear that, that she was kind of a pleasure to work with. She's in a lot of the supplemental stuff that's on your thing too. And she's really game for hawking the merchandise, I have to say.
Oh yeah, no, we had fun. Another thing is my sister Susan is a costume designer. She also went to NYU and has a master's degree in costume design. And because we both think alike, and what was great is that first of all, the girls have to be sexy. And I know that there's probably, and I'm using the word Charlie Band, but more like the company.
Mm-hmm.
There's a sexy for his kind of movies, but then there's my version of sexy. And also I'm a female director and I think differently. So to me, the sexiest scenes were the girls bending over the hood of the car. And so the one's got the mini skirt, one's got the pants. And my sister was so great in understanding like what I thought was funny and what I thought would be sexy and making the girls sexy. I know that I had to do 3 booby shots. And I was really sort of embarrassed because they're very gratuitous. So I tried to make them a little less. Of course, you're doing a makeover. Every movie has to have the makeover scene in the desert. So of course, there's a booby shot there. And then I remember there was one, she's also getting dressed and the camera's here and I would take off her top and then she lifts the suitcase lid that kind of thing covers then the camera. I was like, let's get on and off of it really quickly because there was no real reason to have those in there. So that was interesting. It wasn't really as sexy as maybe that genre would have liked it to have been, but it was as sexy as I was interested in doing it. And I think the thing is, look, one girl had to show, had to show her breasts, and Liz was the one to do it, and thank God she was open to it. And at the audition, I think she was surprised that I didn't want her to take off her top. I go, I don't really care. If you're going to take off your top, woo, good for you, girl. And you know what? She had beautiful breasts. So it worked out perfectly. So it was a different kind of approach for me to approach the project, I guess.
Well, I think you have to check a couple boxes off of like, the Arkoff model under Roger Corman. It's like you need to have a certain amount of sex, a certain amount of nudity in these movies. You've probably heard this said before, I would imagine in some capacity, but like I was making a parallel also to a movie like Amy Holden Jones' Slumber Party Massacre, because Slumber Party Massacre is a movie that I love. It's a female written, female directed slasher movie that was produced by Roger Corman, written by Rita Mae Brown, almost as like a satire of slasher movies. But it was, so it's very funny. A lot of the gender roles are reversed, but because it ultimately is Roger Corman and Concord producing the movie, they definitely have a checklist of like, you need to have this many breasts, you need to have this many,
the F word a certain amount of times. You definitely had that. I'll tell you an interesting about Faster Pussycat Kill Kills. So I lived on Spalding. I lived there for many years off of Melrose. And I had watched Faster Pussycat many times. I knew I loved all the cheapy, kitschy things that Ross Meyer put into his films. And so one of my neighbors one day, I don't know how she came across it, but she says to me, Anita, I'm Haji. I go, I know you're Haji. You're my neighbor, Haji. She goes, no, Anita, I'm Haji. I go, I know you're Haji. She goes, no, from Faster Pussycat Kill Kill, I am Haji. And I was like, oh my God, like she'd been my neighbor for years and years. I had no clue.
That's really funny. That's incredible.
So that was very interesting. But yeah, you know what? It was a Fast and Furious shoot. I was really hoping after that film I would have other opportunities to make other projects. And I've written some other things. And, you know, it was a time of independent films. There were a lot of independent film companies. Money was kind of flowing in the late 80s. And I just, I was in the film business after that for quite a few years, writing scripts, trying to get things going. And I feel a little sad that I didn't get anything else done, but I wanted to share something that I thought would be interesting. I'm sort of
by all means.
You know what? I spent 8 years writing this book that came out a couple years ago. So it's How to Be the Star of Your Life, Lessons from Hollywood. I got your copy. But what I want to tell you, I got Roger Corman to do a blurb right before he passed away, which is really awesome. And that was really cool. Meaningful to me. And then Nick Cassavetes wrote my foreword, which was really important. It meant a lot. But one of the things he said, when I think it's in there, and I'll just paraphrase it, but he was sort of saying, one thing he said, you didn't just talk about stuff, you made things happen, which in those days, a lot of people were talking about, I want to do a project, I want to do this, but I made them happen. And that meant a lot to me. But he also said he wished that I had a chance to make more movies, because I would have, and my feeling is I would have gotten better. Like, it's not a brilliant film. And Modern Girls, I didn't get to direct it. They didn't let me direct it. But you know what? Yeah, I mean, I wish I had gotten to make more movies, because I would have been a better filmmaker. I mean, look, when Spike went to school with me, and if you look at his early films, the more he made, the better he got as a filmmaker. We all get better at what we do. And so that was something that, Nick had said it in the forward, and it just sort of like pinged my heart, going that somebody out there thought, oh, I wish Anita had gotten a chance to make some more pictures. And I wish I had too.
I think I speak for, myself and Steve and our listeners when we echo that sentiment, because, I think for a first-time director, there's a lot of, even dealing with what you're calling like kitschy, campy material, there's a lot of sure-handedness in the movie, and there's a lot of stuff that's handled in a way that, is very professional and seems like someone who is a little bit more seasoned. And there's a thing I wanted to ask about the movie that I never was really, not that I wasn't able to make the connection, but I know that there is some involvement, and I'm curious to what extent. I know that the finished product of the movie has Ted Nicolau's name.
I knew you were going to mention Ted Nicolau. I was just in my mind.
He is a friend of the show. Super, super nice guy. We've had him on to talk about his career also. I don't think we spent any time talking about Assault of the Killer Bimbos, because he, has kind of made a name for himself with a lot of like Full Moon Features franchises and things. So he had a lot to talk about, but having his name on this project always kind of stuck out a little bit to me, and I was very curious the level of involvement. Obviously, this was the 80s. Times were a little bit different. Not that they've necessarily improved all that much, but I think, I'm curious to know, where it ended with you and started with Ted, or vice versa.
So I wrote the script with Patty Astor, and we wrote a script that had the basic storyline of what we have. And then Charlie came in, and because he, worked with Ted a lot and really trusted him, he had Ted come in and rewrite the script. So we got story credit. And, on one side, I didn't mind that much, because I don't think I was that brilliant of a screenwriter, like especially dialogue. Dialogue's really challenging. Like, I think where I was good at is the storyline. Of the girls, the go-go dancers, framed for murder, they didn't commit, and then they're kind of on the run, and all the things that happen. But when it came to dialogue, I was great at it. So Ted came in, and he brought Ted dialogue, and he took the storyline. And you know what? There were times where I was kind of like, oh, that's kind of interesting. And oh, okay. And I tried to make Ted's dialogue work. And his dialogue was campy, and it was kind of silly and fun. I think he might have done, oh no, a bimbo with a gun. I'm not sure who came up with that. I don't think I did. And so, at first, yes, you take as a filmmaker, you take a project that is yours and you have a vision, and then you have another writer. Same thing on Modern Girls. I wrote the first script, and then the company Atlantic Releasing brought in a writer, and she basically just followed me around to the clubs and then wrote her film. So that's kind of, look, filmmaking's collaborative. It's a collaborative.
Oh, of course,
project.
of course.
Now these days, I think it's maybe less collaborative because you can take your phone and you can edit on your computer, and you can, but at that point, it is collaborative, and you have to. You have to learn to, like, it may not be your vision 100%. So you kind of, you stand your ground on things that are important, and you release on things that weren't. So I would say, yeah, at the end of the day, I think he actually wrote quite a humor script. I liked a lot of his dialogue. I don't think I came up with as good of dialogue as that, but it was written as a Ted Nicholau script in many ways.
So yeah, because I was gonna say, you mentioned "Oh no, a bimbo with a gun," obviously a standout line from the movie, but I always love the line about when Peaches is talking about the difference between go-go dancing and stripping, and where she says, you know, go-go happens to be a highly respected classical art form. It's interpretive dance to a rock and roll format. It was just such a funny line of dialogue.
I'm sure that's a Ted Nicholau line. I mean, all those classic lines are his, and I think he understood and knew, working with Full Moon, that you have to have those standout conversations and lines, and they're not going to be like regular dialogue that people are speaking. And they made it fun. They're very funny. It's like, don't call me bimbo. You know, all those things are very funny.
Yeah, and that line actually was paraphrased in the Siskel and Ebert review of the movie, which was, I mean, you know, Gene Siskel in typical Gene Siskel fashion, not giving, you know, too much credit for anything. But, you know, Roger Ebert kind of had this history of loving to go to the market in Cannes in the basement and see what kind of crazy properties were being sold by the titles. And I think he was just happy that a movie called The Salt of the Killer Bimbos existed, because he loves stuff like that. And, you know, he gave sort of a politely
Didn't say he said it was awful charm? Was he the one who reviewed it as it had an awful charm?
He probably did, but I almost would take that as a backhanded compliment. Yeah. But he was in this, I remember, you know, and a lot of those movies, a lot of the Empire movies outside of kind of the big ones like your Reanimators and From Beyond, Dolls, Trolls, those movies, a lot of them didn't even get reviewed by mainstream critics. And so for it to be on At the Movies, and for them to say, like, you know, there is some charm to this movie. And he even brings up the scene where Peaches is talking about, you know, the difference with go-go dancing, and he's talking about that scene with a little smirk, almost like admitting, like, this is a clever little thing that's in here. And it's nice because a lot of movies, like Charlie Band movies, and particularly like the urban classics, which was the label of Assault of the Killer Bimbos, had, you know, Sorority Babes and the Slimeball Bolorama, which I love also, and another movie with an amazing title, Slave Girls from Beyond Infinity. We're talking about Elizabeth Caton, which I think she probably had done right before Killer Bimbos also. You know, I love to see them getting even acknowledged in those conversations. And you brought up Joe Bob Briggs before. I watched the interview. I watched you on, I believe it was probably Monster Vision or his early drive-in show back in the early 90s. And I always found it so funny that, because it's sort of inevitable that we get to this comparison, but I always thought it was so funny that he had such a negative attitude towards Thelma and Louise, but really liked Assault of the Killer Bimbos. And I think he even so much, like, he mugs for the camera and says, you know, you saw it here first, people. Like, Assault of the Killer Bimbos came out 3 years before Thelma and Louise. They did it first. Thelma and Louise stole from this movie. And I don't know that Charlie Band ever felt that way, but there's obviously, you can't talk about it without noticing some obvious similarities between the two movies. So with now almost 35 years essentially separating the release of Thelma and Louise and now, you know, how do you kind of take those comparisons? Like,
so it was interesting because he went all off on that when we were doing drive-in theater, which I thought was quite funny and amusing, and sort of showed them back to back. And I had a lot of fun with that. Look, there's nothing new under the sun. And, you know, at least I am saying I stole from Russ Meyer's Faster Pussycat Kill Kill. So when you have, you know, girls on the run, framed for a murder they didn't commit, I don't know. I don't think that really applies. Look at Thelma and Louise was a fabulous movie, and it's by a fabulous director with an amazing cast. So it's weird to compare. I think the character of Peaches, same name. There was some dialogue that was a little similar. I found it to be very a high honor that it was even compared to. So that was really fun. And I'll tell you, you know, the smart thing that the Charlie Band Company did do is they put a spin on marketing. I mean, they had the title and they had a cute film to back it up. And it opened up, I think, a lot of marketing possibilities that maybe they didn't have with their other pictures, because we got so much press and publicity everywhere we went. Also, we have a female director, so it's like, which is the bimbo, which is the director. We were invited to be on the David Letterman show. Unfortunately, the gal, I can't remember, Christina Whitaker didn't want to go on the David Letterman show, and he wanted either all the girls and the director was the one. And that's a shame. I mean, he would have made fun of us, but it would have been really fun to have been on it. You know, and another thing was then he got, you know, I got sent down to Texas to be on Joe Bob Briggs. They picked me up in a limo. My mother bought me an outfit. I had like, I think it was like purple lizard cowboy boots to wear.
Oh yeah. No, you're rocking those boots. You can, on the YouTube clip, you can see it. Yeah.
My mom picked out for me to go down. It was really a lot of fun. So that was really, like you said, you could see some of those videos. I collected and kept all of those, and Liz was in a lot of them, all the promotional stuff that we did. And it was this very smart of them. They hired a guy named Dale Olson, and you should Google Dale Olson. He's one of those old-timey publicists who at the time probably wasn't, you know, he was at the height of his career when he handled Rock Hudson, when Rock Hudson got AIDS. Okay, so he's been around a long time. And Charlie had brought him in. I don't know if Charlie brought him in for his other films, but he did bring it in for Bimbos. And he came up with some brilliant marketing stuff. We did like a casting call down at the Roosevelt Hotel. We had ladies in wheelchairs, like 80-year-old ladies in wheelchairs auditioning for Bimbos. I mean, how brave and how fabulously silly was that? I think the Schultz, the daughter of the comic Schultz that did the Nuts, she wore roller skates and she roller skated in. I mean, it was just such a fun publicity blitz.
It's fun to watch now in 2026, because I earlier today watched the entire 15 minutes of that casting process thing on YouTube. I had watched it before in preparation for when we covered the episode proper also. But what I love so much about there, I mean, there is an aesthetic to that footage that cannot be reproduced now. I mean, it is so much of a time. And it's great to me because it took me back to when I would have first saw this movie, which would have 100% been on USA Up All Night, because that was how, you know, if you go back, I'm going to say probably not in 88. I think when I was researching for the original show, I saw that was like sometime in late 89 was when it premiered on Up All Night, but it played Up All Night many times. I probably saw it sometime around like 91. So in 91, I was 10. So at that time, that was how I was consuming all of this like forbidden fruit of movies on USA Up All Night. They're highly edited. No, no nudity was being seen, but it was suggested. And that's how Sorority Babes and Slave Girls from Beyond Infinity and Assault of the Killer Bimbos and any, bikini insert name of job here movie that they showed on Up All Night, whether it was Rhonda Shear or Gilbert Gottfried. And that's what I love so much about that archival footage, was that it fits so well aesthetically with like those host segments of something like USA Up All Night. And so it was just kind of like this huge nostalgia rush watching that.
But it was a very innocent time in some ways as well.
Yes.
Now everybody has a phone, so everyone's doing selfies and self-promotion and all of those things. In those days, there's just such a freshness and uniqueness, and you're also behind the scenes, so people are sort of saying what they are going to say and being how they're going to be. It is fun footage.
Yeah, and then there is like an ad bumper for all of the Killer Bimbos merchandise that Elizabeth Caton does. which is so fun. It's like she almost looks like she's in a bedroom. It's like this looks like the set of someone's bedroom on like Saved by the Bell or something like that. It's very 80s. But I will say, like, all of that merchandise is so fun. One of my favorites is there was a PO box with a thing to write in for Killer Bimbos merchandise. I screenshotted that from my phone and I said, I have to put this picture into the promotional stuff for this episode when we're ready to drop it. But, you know, it was like watching that bumper and knowing this stuff was out there, you know, 35 plus years later was how I landed on this guy.
The flying bimbos.
Which then the fact that Elizabeth Caton has a hair dryer in her hand is so funny to me in this picture. It's a great photo. Is a lot of really fun songs. It's just such a fun artifact from the movie to have. And I think, and our guest Becky, when she was on the episode with us, was like, I will give you guys a PO box if you can find and send to me a red "I'm a Killer Bimbo" t-shirt.
Ah, well, you know, we were supposed to do Bimbo Barbecue. That was the
Yes.
And we had it at the drive-in theater. And this is another thing Dale had put together. It was at the Pickwick, and we had a drive-in theater, and everything was like bimbo dogs, bimbo burgers. They all had a big theme. And then Angeline and the Barbarian Brothers and all these fabulous people were like judging the bimbo contest to see who would get a role in Bimbo Barbecue, which was really kind of fun. And I will tell you, I live at the corner of Hollywood and Vine, and a decade or so longer ago, I was down at the sushi bar below in my building, Katsuya, and sitting at the bar next to me was Quentin Tarantino. So I am like thrilled because I know his films, and I also know that he worked at a video store making films, and apparently had an entire Salt of the Killer Bimbo section, or a section of cult films, or whatever it happened to be. Anyway, when I told him who I was, the conversation went from me being a fangirl of his to him being a fanboy of mine. He goes, I was at the Pickwick, I was at the drive-in theater. I know. He told me all the facts about all the girls. He knew so much information. He was so cute.
That's really awesome.
His phone number and his email, said, send me pictures, send me to it was really that it was nice. Just somebody whose work you really admire, who could kind of look back and go, oh yeah, I admire the things that you did. It was really, it was a moment. It was a moment.
I'm sure, because that's a huge moment. And like we on the show here, we've had kind of, I guess, like a smaller version of that, where like we've had people on who were crew members or directors or writers for some of these, you know, smaller full moon projects. And they say, and I'll reach out to them and they'll say, oh yeah, you know, I've heard the show. I'm a fan. I like what you do. Like even hearing that from those people, because it's like, you always, you know, we took on this from the approach of fans. And I think when we started it, we thought we were going to be giving our, you know, immediate family and friends homework, and that no one else was going to listen to it. And so once that happened, it was like, so I can only imagine, yeah, someone to the stature of that, then, and not only that, but it's like talking about something that you did so long ago. I have to imagine after years, you know, you sort of separate a little bit. And I know you changed careers, so you're probably way more focused on the stuff that you've been doing in the recent years than this little movie that you had made probably then 25 years ago. So, I mean, that's got to feel really awesome.
You know, one of the things that I do is I make scrapbooks of everything. So while I was on the set, I did, of course, Polaroids are big because you're shooting Polaroids. And I always had my camera, and I have a giant scrapbook that I made from the set. And because I love scrapbooks and I love history and my own history of creative projects I've done, I constantly am reliving and looking at those pictures. I actually I did create a photography website last year, because I do have some photographs from the graffiti era when I was at NYU that are actually used in a lot of books. And it's my intellectual property. So in order to protect that, I kind of, I copyrighted all of that and I put it on a website. But if anybody's interested in seeing the scrapbook of Salt of the Killer Bimbos, these
I'm sure they are.
And all my favorites. So it's Anita Rosenberg Photography. And it's all the fun behind the scenes photographs I have, which is fun. And there's some pictures from the Pickwick Drive-In, which is actually a lot of fun. But when he was shooting, so when Quentin was shooting the Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, they redressed. I live at Hollywood and Vine, so he redressed this intersection, and they were shooting.
Mm-hmm.
And so I know he's a really nice person. I only met him that one time. So, and they were shooting nights. So I went down quite a few times, so like at 1 in the morning, 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning in my pajamas, thinking maybe there won't be a lot of people and he'll be on the set, and it was very accessible. I could just wave and go, "Hi, you remember me?" And it would have been really fun. I never got the opportunity because it was so crowded. 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning. There were so many people still lining up and down Hollywood Boulevard. He sort of stayed in the middle because he could see how many people were like lined up. And there I am in like sort of my Uggs and my pajamas. A moment with him. And it didn't happen, but I gave it a shot.
And sometimes that's all. Yeah, that's all you need to do is give it a shot. And I'm glad that you were given a shot to make this film, that this project ultimately found its way to you. When someone says, like, let's say you were having a conversation with somebody and you didn't know that they were a fan of the film, and they happened to bring up Assault of the Killer Bimbos in a conversation. Instinctively, what is kind of like, whether it's an anecdote, whether it's a moment you remember from set, whether it's a process or production thing, what is kind of like the first thing that comes to your mind when someone just says the title of the movie? Like, is there a moment from production or something that really stands out to you? Is there something like just, I guess, a memory from that time that makes you feel a little nostalgic, the way that I get when I watch those USA Up All Night footage?
Well, I mean, I sort of told you little anecdotes as we along on the interview, so I don't know if I really have anything. I think the minute I think of that title, you have to look at it in context of the time. It's 1988, and the word bimbo was used a lot. It was, I'm trying to think, there were a couple historic bimbo-y things that were going on, and so to me, I guess I think of it as partially just sort of accepting what was a vernacular going on and a perception of women going on. And then maybe hopefully twisting it a little bit, twisting the perception. I mean, the point is I went to art school and I was a welder. And then I go into NYU and I wanted to direct. And then I come out here to Hollywood and I want to write and direct. And the bottom line is these were kind of male jobs. I didn't think they were male jobs in my mind. I didn't think I was going to have a hard time getting a chance to express my creativity. It didn't occur to me. I actually wanted to do guy stuff. I wanted to be a welder. I wanted to weld big, giant metal sculptures. I wanted to direct. I wanted to do things that, not because I thought guys normally did them, it's just these were the things that I wanted to do. And I didn't think that there was a barrier to do it, which I think is probably the best thing you can do, is not think that there's a barrier to do it. So when I think of the film, I think, okay, this was my directorial debut. I got a chance to direct a movie, and it was pretty exciting. And I got an opportunity to tell a story the way I wanted to do it, with my sensibilities and creative thoughts to the best of my abilities at that moment in time. So I don't know if that completely answers, but I look at it in context of, look, I just to kind of go back, like, so this book is a book of interviews of all my famous friends in the movie business, all my friends that went to NYU with me. Virginia Madsen is in it for modern roles, talking about creativity. Fab Five Freddy, who just wrote his memoir, it's out. He has a chapter. So all these people are for the most part, Alan Arkish is in my book. These are people who made movies in the 80s and the 90s. And they're talking about their creativity and their, what it took to get their work out there and shown, and hopefully inspiring the next generation of people. So what I tried to do with this is make it an evergreen kind of project. Like they're telling stories about their different, like, Ernie Dickerson, who worked with Spike on movies, sort of tells his journey as a Black filmmaker and coming up against like the opportunities that he had. So, and there's a lot of women in the book. And then I found a lot of the women know each other. So Mona May did Clueless. She was the costume designer. And she worked with Julie Brown, who she wrote Earth Girls Are Easy.
Yep.
I love those kind of titles and all those kitschy projects. So I'm not the only one in the boat that kind of had these really interesting, exciting moments in film history and got a chance to make projects that they wanted to make. Against all odds, I guess, in a way. I mean, E.G. Daly's in the book. She did Valley Girl, one of my favorite films. That was Martha Coolidge, another female director. And, she talks about they brought their own clothes from their house for Valley Girl. And then she was like, she would take Nicolas Cage to school in the car shift because he lived with his grandmother and he didn't have a car. I mean, those are the kinds of stories I think are really fun. And I think they're really helpful to young filmmakers today. And for younger people who are interested in these films, there is a sense of magic that happens when you get a chance to do things. But, at the same time, people try their whole life to make films, get something made. I have someone I went to film school with, John Auerbach, who did it's probably a movie you like, Stepfather 2. He wrote Stepfather 2.
Yeah, and that was directed by Jeff Burr, who did a lot of Full Moon movies too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I do Stepfather 2. I Stepfather 1 for me. That's like a top 20 movie for me. That's like I would take to a desert island movie. Stepfather 2 I enjoy a bit too. Actually, Stepfather 2, that's Meg Foster is in that too with I'm blanking, Terry O'Quinn. I was blanking on his name for a second.
But the point of bringing him up is John has written a lot of screenplays, like a lot that have gotten. It's the only movie that got made. So the fact that I got 2 movies made is a lot more than most people. So
for sure.
You kind of sit back and you go, oh, I wish I could have done this or that. Anybody in their career,
Yeah.
And Alan Arkush talks about all the movies that when he was working with Roger Corman, with Joe
Dante.
Joe Dante, and they were editing. Everyone did other types of things. Marion Brandon, who became this massive editor of action films that I was mentioning. I don't think editing she wanted to be a director as well. And so she talks about how she kind of ended up getting into editing and getting into her project. So that to me is, I love inspiring stories. I love inspiring stories about filmmakers. I love what you're doing is you're taking these interesting pictures that you've always liked and digging behind and getting some interesting stories and what happened behind the scenes. So, I gave myself a chapter in the end, and I talk a little bit about, I don't know if you'd read it because I don't even remember what I wrote, but yeah, there's me with my clapboard right there. But yeah, just sort of telling a little bit of the journey of what it took for me to do those. And I didn't foresee I would not be making films. I really didn't. But you know what? You're right. I've had other careers. I went back and had a hand-painted furniture business, and I built $1 million business in my garage. I've been a feng shui and Chinese astrology expert for the last 28 years. I've been working on a massive project about my great uncle, who was a famous artist in the 1920s. And so that's a big, massive project. And the book to me was just putting a little dot on a career, like just kind of going back and being able to, these are friends, these are colleagues, these are people that were meaningful in my life, and having kind of a reconnection with them and then being able to share it in the book. So I hope people end up getting the book. And listen, look, at the end of the day, what I make $1 on a book. So it's not a financial thing. I wrote it for people to read and to take a look at. And so, most of the people in here are cult filmmakers. They are, Z movie called kitschy filmmaker people. And that's what makes them all really actually kind of fun.
And Steve and I talk sometimes about, like we'll watch a movie for the podcast that we're going to cover, and we try to uncover as much behind the scenes and production stuff. And maybe sometimes it's one that just really doesn't kind of work for us. And we try to be charitable and we try to say nice things about it, even if we don't really enjoy it, because we've kind of fallen into this mindset now of it's like, hearing these stories out of people's mouths of issues with production, time restraints, budget restraints. It's sort of, we've have this thing where we're kind of like, it's a minor miracle that any movie gets made ever.
It is a complete miracle. And listen, while you're in the trenches and you're there, it's very stressful. You know, you got dailies, you got the producers telling you this, you've got this and that. I think we did on Modern Girls, we ended up, the production fired the cinematographer. We got Karen Grossman. She was one of the few female cinematographers at the time. You know, they go through all various things. I mean, I thought BIMBOS had a terrific editor. I learned a lot sitting with him in the editing room, taking the footage and how he kind of like would create beats and paths and stories in the way he was editing stuff. I mean, I don't have any bad or negative memories. I only have good memories that I got to make this movie. It probably was really challenging, but it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. I mean, I look at my outfits. I mean, it was those time periods where, remember those, they were like those wool, they weren't even socks. They were the things that you wore over your pants or something.
Like leg warmers.
I had fucking leg warmers on while I was directing like the big action sequence. I think I had shorts that were shorter than the girl shorts. It's really, it's a moment in time, and everybody I thought was really terrific. I mean, we had Royce Matthews he was the set decorator, the art director, and his big thing was, because we didn't have a lot of money, he goes, well, if everything's a theme, like, so it's Halloween, so let's make it a Halloween theme, or let's decorate for this. Like, he would just go to the theme store and get these tacky themes, and that was what he would decorate. I just love that everyone had their creativity and knew what they needed to do, all the crew, and how to make a low budget movie really quick, really fast. And make it work. We didn't have any technical issues. It's not like we came back and, oh, there's no sound on this. The picture is horrible. There's no lighting. I mean, everybody was very professional.
That's so fun. That's really fun to hear. Again, speaking of anachronisms, I think in when we were doing the episode proper on the movie, I forget if it was me or Steve, based on something we read, said something along the lines that we felt like the shoot was a difficult shoot. I don't know where we got that information from, because now I'm hearing it from you, where you're saying like, yeah, probably stressful at the time, but also like you can kind of step back in the moment and be like, we're making this fun, kitschy movie. People are, you know, committed, and they're having a good time. So it's always good to get these stories directly from people, because it always sheds a light on movies too. I think a lot of times, if you're a casual viewer of movies, you watch something, you maybe make up your mind, oh, I like that, I didn't like that, this worked, this didn't work. But the more movies we watch and the more we get to know the people who made them, they become kind of like a snapshot, and it could be a snapshot of a period of time. It could be a snapshot of a period in someone's career when they were just getting started. But it's we definitely have learned to look at them differently. And I think in covering BIMBOS for the show, it's just like this. There's an earnest sweetness, innocence, and infectiousness to this movie, and so it's been a real pleasure being able to talk to you about it.
Well, thanks for having me on, and yes, it's been a nice journey. I just want to mention also, shout out to Tom Calloway. He was the cinematographer, and you know what, the director needs their cinematographer. I thought he did a beautiful job on it, and yeah, listen, I'm sure on the set, if I was to go back and be like, you know, looking at everything and be like, oh my God, this one didn't kill each other over this one. And then, I don't know. You know what? Time has gone by, and all I can say is we made the movie. I stand by it. It's still pretty funny. It's really silly. I thought everybody in it gave it their all. And I'm proud of it. I'm proud of it. And I do thank Debbie Dion and Charlie Band for, you know, giving me that opportunity to make a movie, because no one else is giving me an opportunity to make a film. And I did get to make the film I wanted to make. I did get to make something kind of kitschy and kind of silly and kind of campy. So that works. It works for me.
Oh, good. I'm definitely something to be proud of. And I could continue to talk to you about Assault of the Killer Bimbos, among other things, among just like your relationship and interactions with other people who've worked either in the B movie circuit or even like in A pictures and stuff like that. But I want to be respectful of your time and not hold you here for the whole day.
It's a wrap.
That's right. That's a wrap. That's a good time to close the slate there on me. Just to get me to shut up. Just close that slate.
Anyway, thank you for having me on.
Oh, you're very welcome.
Oh,
And
wow.
if you are someone who listens to this podcast and you haven't seen Assault of the Killer Bimbos, I find that, first of all, kind of hard to believe, but definitely check it out. You'll find something in the movie to love. If you like the show that we bring to you week to week, the best way to show us is to go on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, leave us a 5-star rating, maybe write a little review too. It just helps us to reach a wider audience. This will be probably one of you guys have asked us about YouTube content, so this will probably be one of the few actual like visual things that you will see on YouTube. And Steve and I will eventually hopefully get out to putting more YouTube content out there. It's hard because, as you guys all know, Steve is also the host of Cinema Arcade, another podcast where him and his other co-hosts on that show watch a movie and then play the video game that's based on that movie, and then compare and contrast and talk about which one works and which one doesn't work. And this has been an absolute blast chatting with Anita Rosenberg, and she has one more thing.
And
so
I forgot the most important thing. Okay,
go ahead.
So when the movie came out, there were 5 prints, and I bought one, 35 millimeter prints, and I had not opened it. And a couple of weeks ago, I was asked, like, why don't we have a screening and a Q&A? I said, well, let's open the print and see. Is it stuck together or what's going on? So we did open it. It smelled a little like vinegar, not bad. And it's in perfect shape. And it's screenable, and they rewound it because it was tails out. And I'm just saying, anyone who's in the LA area, we do a screening on Labor Day, September 7th. And Liz is going to be there, and I'm going to be there. It's through Cinematic Void, which is a group that does.
Oh, yeah.
They have all sold out screenings here. I'm not sure where they screened it at, but follow for social media, whether it's the Cinematic Void or I'm on Instagram, I'm on TikTok, I'm on Facebook. So follow, and Jarrod's going to know, and he's going to put it out. But yeah, Labor Day, the film has not been screened since it came out. I mean, there has.
Is it on Labor Day or Labor Day weekend?
It's Monday, Labor Day, September 7th.
Huh. I will say this now. I mean, obviously life happens and plans change. I might be there.
I'm really excited. I'm excited because it hasn't been shown. Like Modern Girls has been shown quite a few times. We've had a lot of screenings, and the actresses have come and whatnot. But this is going to be the only thing, and the print looks good, so I'm excited. That's
amazing. I'm so glad you stopped me from doing my kind of goodbyes to do that, because we did chat. You had told me about that, and it kind of slipped my mind also. So I'm so glad that we got the plug for that screening in. So Monday, September 7th, Labor Day. More details to follow. You'll be hearing this episode in mid-May. That'll give you almost 4 months to figure out travel accommodations to make it to LA for that. And I have a lot of friends in LA. I've been looking for a reason to get back out there.
And Liz will sign your swag. So bring your merch.
And it's funny. I talked about my, kind of undying love for Elizabeth Caton as a genre actress. I think I have like lots of merch from multiple things that she's been in. So maybe I should start packing that stuff now.
Good. Thank you so much. Thanks everyone for tuning in. It was fun.
Thank you, Anita. This has been an absolute blast, and we will see you guys next time for our regularly scheduled programming.